Hey everyone, what's going on? Today we're going to test out the brand new PlayStation 5 DualSense wireless controller and see if we can come up with an abomination mod using this. So stay tuned, let's check it out and let's see what we can get into today. Alright everybody, here we have it, the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. This one just came out, so it retails for about $69.99, and I ran over to my store as soon as possible to grab it. I have a number of tests I'd like to perform on it, one of them being the Cronuszen. I want to find out if it's compatible with the Cronuszen and see if we can get this hooked up to our Xbox One and a few other devices I have around the house. It has a number of features such as a motion sensor, built-in battery, and it has an integrated speaker. So a few noticeable differences between this controller and the DualShock 4 controller. This one has a built-in mic, and honestly I don't think I've ever seen a controller like this that has a built-in mic. I'm really curious to see and experience what the voice chats will sound like when I'm able to talk to other people online. In addition to that, you will need a USB-C cable to come with this. It doesn't come in the box. You will have to purchase it separately. For those of you guys not familiar with USB-C, those are the connections that you typically find on some of your Samsung phones and other electronic devices, like a Samsung SSD storage drive. Now, in a similar Sony fashion, the battery is built in, and the other thing they added was a brand new button called the Create button. This button, if you guys are familiar with, has replaced the Share button. It offers players the ability to produce gaming content and broadcast your gaming adventures to your friends and to the entire world, and keeping everything like. This controller also has a nice texturized design, so if you guys are gaming for a long time and your hands get really sweaty, it won't slip out of your hands. In fact, it has a really nice grip to it. Now, after playing with the controller for a few minutes, I did happen to notice the PlayStation button right between the two joysticks. My only takeaway about that is, honestly, I wish it kind of stood out a little bit more from the controller instead of being all black. Preferably, I think they could have left the PlayStation logo black with the letter P, and then the letter S could have been red, just so it pops out a little bit more. It looks like it just totally blends in with the controller. If they were going for that effect as far as it just being, blending in so you wouldn't recognize it, I do think they did a good job that way. But just a personal preference of mine is I would have liked for it to be maybe some other colors, maybe red, so it kind of stands out a little bit more. After also playing around with the controller and looking at the bottom, it did kind of resemble the Xbox One controller adapter. So fortunately, I was right next to my controller. I can pick it up and take a look at it and get a comparison to see if the jacks are about the same. And actually, they're not, but they're kind of close as far as the charge adapter where you would typically plug in the headset. Now, I do know that there are several versions of the Xbox controller where the headsets have changed over a period of years, but I think this more or less resembles the original Xbox One controller with the adapter there. But it is a 1/8 mini jack, which you can plug in a regular headset if you so choose to. But let's go ahead and move into the next step, and let's see if we can get this hooked up with our Cronuszen device. And as you can see, we're going to go ahead and plug that into our USB-C cable. This is from my SSD Samsung device. Fortunately, I had one of those laying around. And let's see what we could do to possibly get this paired with an Xbox and also our Raspberry Pi unit. Now that we have our Sony PlayStation 5 DualSense controller out of the box, I'm going to show you guys how to sync it up to any device. The first thing you do need to do is hold down the PlayStation button here, and you also need to hold down the Create button. Now, I've already done this, and the device we're going to sync it up to today is called the Raspberry Pi 4. For those of you guys not familiar with this, this is a single board computer which allows you to do pretty much retro gaming is what I use it for. You could also use it for other desktop applications. But essentially, we're going to use the Raspberry Pi 4 8GB model that is loaded with the newest RetroPie build that we'll be releasing in a couple of weeks, called Supreme Ultra. It's one of the things that I've been working on for some time. So let's go ahead and I'll walk you guys through on how to get this set up for your RetroPie device. Okay, so now we're on our options menu on our RetroPie device. We're going to hit the A button, go to options, and the next option we're going to select is RetroPie tools, and then we're going to go down to Bluetooth. All right, so before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I pair my PlayStation 5 controller. So we're going to hold down the PlayStation button, and we're also going to hold down the create button at the same time. And you'll get this blue flicker about 3 seconds later. So there you go, it's in pairing mode right now. And now going back to our RetroPie, we're going to select register and connect Bluetooth devices. And it takes a few minutes for it to search. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and select wireless controller. And we're going to select no input, no output. And then now we're going to go ahead and back out since it's already connected. As you can see, I now have a steady light here on my Bluetooth PlayStation 5 controller. Now, this is my second or third time that I've synced this up today. So the first time I did it, it showed an error, but after that, it's already paired up. So you don't have to worry about that if you've already synced it up before. If you're going to be bouncing back and forth between RetroPie devices and your PlayStation, for the most case, then you really don't have to worry about that error message popping up. So we're going to go ahead and hit cancel. Going to back out. And then now we're going to go ahead and set it up. So let's go to configure input. And I'm going to go ahead and hold in the button. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this up as I would any normal controller. And we're going to make the touchpad here in the middle the hotkey button. So we'll go ahead and make that. Now I could use the PlayStation button, but because this has a DualSense controller here in the middle, I'll just figure go ahead and use that. It doesn't really matter for me. And as you can see now, I am now navigating around with the PlayStation 5 controller on the RetroPie. Now before I get into any gameplay, I do want to go ahead and bring this back in here. This is the Cronuszen device. If you guys are not familiar with this, you guys can check out my playlist on this. This is one of the top devices of the year. This allows you to use any controller you pretty much have, whether it's an Xbox, Xbox One, PlayStation controller, or whatever, on any other type of console. So if I wanted to use, let's say, my Xbox One controller on a PlayStation 4, this device allows me to do that. I also use this for arcade modding. I know a lot of people go with different devices, but this is actually the best device for arcade modding because you can use this for your Nintendo Wii, you can use this for your Switch, you can use this for your Wii U, you can use this for your PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox 360. So this is what you call an adaptive controller. A lot of guys use this for scripting, so that way you have automatic aim assist if you're playing Call of Duty and other various games. But it has more uses than just trying to get easy headshots and have additional assistive controller options. So one of the things that I attempted to do today was plug this into my Xbox One to see if I could get this to work. However, I've been having a little problems with that, which I'll show you guys in a few minutes, and I'll show you guys why. Typically, when you use an adaptive controller or you plug in the PlayStation 5 controller, PlayStation 4, Xbox, it registers as a particular device. So for example, if I take this particular controller, this is a Logitech controller here that I'm using for my Raspberry Pi. Even though this is a Microsoft controller, it registers as a Logitech controller due to the drivers. Typically, if I plug in a PlayStation 3 controller into my PC, it'll say PS3 Axes or something of that nature. But usually you'll get either Xbox gamepad or some type of title or drivers when you plug it in. Plugging the PlayStation 5 controller into my Xbox, I wasn't able to read anything. It didn't pull it up. I'll show you guys that here in just a second. However, there is one interesting thing I definitely want to show you that was really important. I wanted to really make this video out there for the devs too, so you guys can kind of get an idea about how this is currently reading on the Raspberry Pi device. So here we are back on the desktop, and this is a program called WinSCP. It allows me to see the additional files that's located on my Raspberry Pi device. The purpose of this is I wanted to see what the Raspberry Pi is detecting the PlayStation 5 controller at. Normally this would sync up as either a PlayStation 3, PlayStation 5, some type of Axis, or a Microsoft controller, but it wasn't registering in the Zen Studio program, which I'll show you guys that in a few minutes. However, I did get the PlayStation 5 controller to register as a gamepad or joypad on the Zen Studio program, but however, it doesn't work with the Microsoft Xbox One. So we're gonna go ahead and access the terminal here on the RetroPie, and I'm gonna type in ls space dev / input. So ls space /dev / input, and we're going to execute. And if you notice down here, it registers as a mice or a mouse. So that was pretty weird to see that this controller is registering as a mouse instead of any other type of device, probably because of the touchpad. So that led me to believe that maybe you can use this to scroll or maybe play some other games. I obviously know using this as a PlayStation 5, you can use this as a mouse, but that's just a pretty weird readout. So I'm still playing around with this if I can get this to work in Zen Studio and have this connect some type of way as either a mouse or a keyboard setting. However, on the Raspberry Pi device, it is being detected as a mouse. It is not being detected as a PlayStation controller or an Xbox controller or a Axis device, which is normally what you would see as a PlayStation 3, but it is registering as a mouse. Here is the Zen Studio program, and I'll go ahead and hook this up here for you guys in a minute so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Go ahead and minimize this. So now that we're back on the desktop, I've turned on my Xbox One console and I have my Cronuszen connected to the device. I have the Cronuszen currently hooked up to my PC, which you can see on the screen. And then of course, I also have it plugged into the console. So right now we're going to sync up the PlayStation 5 controller to the Cronuszen and see what happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is put it back in pairing mode. Now, before I did this, I did have to disconnect it from my RetroPie device and remove the device, so that wouldn't cause any conflicts. And then now I'm going to hold in the Bluetooth pairing button on the Cronuszen, and as you can see, the PlayStation 5 controller shows up in the Zen Studio program as a joypad. So, however, even though that is here, I'm not able to get any movement or any functions on my Xbox One or on my PC. It's pretty weird because with this, even though that the drivers aren't ready yet through the Zen Studio, and I know the devs will be working on this, I would think that I should be able to at least get this to register as a mouse. So this is a new piece of technology. Obviously, this is going to get incorporated into the Zen Studio. I know the devs over there pretty well, and they put out some things pretty well as far as keeping this up to date. I do know that the Xbox controller will be compatible because the Xbox Elite Controller 2 is already backwards compatible and forwards compatible with both the Xbox One and the Series X. But this one's going to take a little bit of work with the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, guys. Again, this is Keeldike, and hope you guys enjoyed this brief tutorial to see what I could do to get this to work on my Xbox One. And unfortunately, I'm not able to get it to sync up, but other than that, I really love this controller. This controller is really sturdy. It has a really decent weight to it. I mean, it's probably one of the heaviest PlayStation controllers I've ever held in some time. If you guys are planning on using the Cronuszen with this device, sorry for that. If you guys plan on using the Cronuszen with this device, please give it some time. They're still working in development. However, as you guys can see on the screen right here, it is synced up as a joypad currently. So I did go to the mouse and keyboard settings to see if I can toy around with it. As you guys see that it is there right there, but I'll keep playing around with it just to see if anything at all pops up. But I love playing with technology and bringing you guys this type of content. This is Keeldike, and hope you guys have a good day. Catch you guys later. Make sure you consider subscribing, and also look at all of my playlists for the Cronuszen and some of my other gaming tutorials with the retropie and everything else I do here. So you guys have a good day, and I hope you guys have a good night. Later.